When you think of a lawyer, what pops into your head? Probably someone super sharp, always has the perfect comeback, and seems to know the answer to absolutely everything, right? The person who just wins every argument. Well, let's dig into that because the reality is actually way more interesting and a lot more human.
But get this quote, it comes from a lawyer. I know, it sounds kind of crazy, but it's the honest truth. The law is just this massive, constantly changing universe. You've got 50 states, a whole federal system, local rules. It's just impossible for one person to know it all. So if law school isn't about just memorizing a ton of laws, what's it really for?
Right, so if it's not about turning students into walking legal encyclopedias, what's the whole point? Well, it's about teaching a very specific skill. It's about rewiring your brain to think in a completely new way. It's really less about knowing all the answers and way more about knowing how to find them. And this is that method in a nutshell. The big one is a framework called IRAC. You spot the issue, state the legal rule, do your analysis, and then draw a conclusion. Think of it like a mental toolkit. You learn to strip emotion out of it, to argue for a side you don't even agree with, and to spot patterns and analogies everywhere. It's all about analysis and getting comfortable with the idea that most things are not black and white.
Now, these are all fantastic skills, for sure. But let's be real for a second. If you ever needed a lawyer, would you run around telling your friends, oh my gosh, their IRAC method was just top-notch? Probably not, right? So this hints that there has to be something deeper, something more fundamental to being a great advocate.
And that brings us to the real core of this whole thing. It's a word that might feel a little old-fashioned, but believe me, it packs an incredible punch: zeal.
See, zeal isn't just about cold logic or perfect analysis. It's about passion. It's that fire, that intense energy you bring when you truly, deeply believe in a cause. It's the difference between just, doing a job and fighting for someone with every single thing you've got.
And this isn't some new age idea either. The legal world has understood how important zeal is for more than 100 years. In fact, if you go all the way back to 1908, the American Bar Association was already spelling out what it really means to stand up for a client. Okay, the language back then was a bit formal, but the message, it was crystal clear. It really boils down to these three things. First, total devotion. Your lawyer is on your team 100%. Second, what they called warm zeal. That means you use every bit of your skill and knowledge to fight for your client as hard as you possibly can. And third, this belief that when both sides argue with that much passion, the whole system just works better and you're more likely to get a fair result.
So what does this zealous advocacy actually look like in the real world? Well, sometimes the most powerful lessons show up in the most unexpected places.
Picture this. Fresh out of law school, a lawyer named Adam Lang starts working for an organization in New York City. His job? To represent parents who were at risk of losing their kids to the foster care system. And let me tell you, these were not easy cases. His clients were often facing some unbelievable hardships.
And this is the paradox he saw every single day. His clients were dealing with everything: poverty, addiction, mental health struggles, just these tremendous, overwhelming problems. But when it came to their kids, their advocacy was fierce, it was passionate, it was unwavering. They were zealous advocates for their children, even when they couldn't find the strength to advocate for themselves.
And that experience led him to this really profound realization. It's so often easier for us to fight for other people, our friends, our family, our kids, than it is to stand up and demand that same level of care and respect for ourselves. And that insight, it was about to become deeply, deeply personal for him. Because while he was so busy fighting for other people, he was completely neglecting his most important client, himself. Just look at this path. It's a classic story of success. Fighting a book ban in high school, excelling in college, crushing law school, landing the dream job. He was always moving forward, always climbing. Until one day, on a packed subway car, he just ran right off the edge of a cliff. And he described it with this perfect, almost cartoonish metaphor. He said he felt like Wile E. Coyote, who runs so fast that he doesn't even realize he's off the cliff until he makes the mistake of looking down. He'd been running on pure momentum for years, and then, all of a sudden, he was just falling. That panic attack was the ultimate wake-up call. It finally forced him to do for himself what he'd been doing for his clients all along, to start advocating. He took real, concrete steps, therapy, focusing on his health,
and maybe most importantly, accepting that he didn't have to be perfect. He started the hard, daily work of taking care of himself.
So why does this one person's story matter so much to the rest of us? Well, because this isn't just about one lawyer's struggle. It's a lesson that is pretty universal.
I mean, we see this exact same principle playing out on a massive scale. Think about it. Movements like Me Too and Black Lives Matter, at their very core, are about people finding their collective voice and zealously advocating for themselves, demanding the respect and the justice they've always deserved.
So here's the bottom line. The biggest lesson from thinking like a lawyer might not actually be about logic or rules at all. It's about advocacy. It's about learning to fight for others with all that passion and energy, but never, ever forgetting to turn that same fierce advocacy inward, on yourself.
And that really leaves us with one final important question. We spend so much of our lives being a zealous advocate for our families, our friends, our jobs, our causes, and that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. But in all of that, you have to ask yourself, who is being a zealous advocate for you? Because the most important answer to that question has to be you.